Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Carrie Contey, and I'm so happy you're here. And I'm extra excited today because I get to talk to my friend Gina Giordano, who started Doula Trainings International, DTI. It's a phenomenal organization that is certifying doulas, both birth and postpartum doulas all over the world. And I'm just thrilled that you're here with me, Gina. Welcome.
Thank you, Carrie. We're excited to be here. Yeah.
So I asked you if you'd be interested in having this conversation. I was just curious if there were some questions that you wanted to share with your community. Ask me and share with your community. And so before we jump in, because you crafted some brilliant questions, I'm super excited for this conversation. I wanted to go ahead and just let you share a little more about DTI because it is such a unique and amazing organization that you've created.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So DTI is a doula training company that we train and certify doulas in both birth and postpartum. So we only have one training that we focus on the full spectrum of care. We find that to be really important to really support families from start to finish. And we're an amazing, loving community of autonomous doulas that we're really committed to compassionate and competent care. And we're all inclusive. So we really support birth for all bodies and all beings, which is really a main focus of ours right now. And we have an amazing in-person doula training as well as an online doula training. So we're really opening up to the whole world, and it feels pretty amazing. And we love you, Carrie, because we love to really just focus on that postpartum time and the newborn time. It's really just so special. And birth gets so much focus because it's so just wonderful and oxytocin-y and glamorous. But I don't feel like the postpartum time gets that much recognition. So that's one of my favorite things that you really focus on is digging a little deeper in the first 3 months, especially the first year of the family life, and really coming up with those tools that can help everyone come together as a unit and not just independently and individually. So yeah, I'm excited to ask you these questions.
Yeah, let's dive in. And I just want to say hello to your little cutie that I can hear in the background. Really glad she's here. Introduce her, please.
I will. So I have little Una, who is 3.5, probably 3.5 months. Can you say hi, Una?
Hi, Una. I'm so glad you're here.
She's just hanging. Yeah.
Yay, that is a sweet little human. Oh, what a treat. I'm glad she's here.
Yeah, thank you. She's a sweet little baby. Oh, you just want to stay up here now.
Sure, she wants to be in on it.
Yeah, let's do this. I apologize if my computer's a little wonky. We're all set up on pillows in our bed right now.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, get comfy.
Awesome. Okay.
All right, I'm all yours. So whatever it is you want to ask me, go with it.
Awesome. I can't wait. So first, to start out, let's just talk about babies because they're awesome. We love your focus on babies and how they're just individual beings in this world. And as doulas, we tap into newborns and understand them. That's part of our role as doulas. And there is now all of this amazing evidence-based information about newborns and how conscious they are when they're born, even actually in utero. And you have a saying, big bean in little bodies, and I just love that. It's one of my favorite Carrie things. So can you tell us a little bit more about this and like the old way of thinking about babies versus the new way?
Yes, love that question. So my background is in a field called prenatal and perinatal psychology. So for the past 20 years, I've really been digging deeply into this whole field that's looking at, who are we? And when we arrive on this planet in the baby form, what's really going on? And so one of the things I love is kind of laying out the old way of thinking about babies and humans and development and the new way. And so the old way, which really is still sort of out there, it's not completely, we haven't transitioned completely, but it was really the idea that babies arrive as blank slates. And I've even heard people, even still today, I hear people talk about the blob, that they don't really acknowledge, like there was never really an implicit cultural, in Western culture at least, acknowledgement that there's a person there. And that really informed a lot of, medical practices that were not necessarily as respectful as they now are. It informed ways of people approaching parenting that were pretty limited in the sense of if you think there's nobody home and that it's your job to pour in all of the information, then you're going to approach that experience and that other person very differently than if you have an understanding that they're there. And so the new way, and a lot of this is coming out of my field, prenatal and perinatal psychology. It's also coming out of attachment theory, and it's definitely even more, we're getting more evidence in the last 20 years out of the interpersonal neuroscience and neurobiology fields that really is giving us a new picture. And as you said, I use the term the big being in the little body. And what I mean by that is there's the conscious the being, the one who is alert and alive and aware and communicating and doing whatever they can to be known within the limitations of a very small body. And so what I really encourage parents and doulas and anybody working around birth and babies is to really treat them as if they're there and that they're understanding you, that there's no reason we should treat them as other at all, because we now really know, and I mean, and I know, and all the people listening probably know intuitively, we didn't need the science, but we have it, that there's a whole person from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And yes, maybe their brain isn't as wired as ours and they can't express themselves the same way, but they're there. And they're experiencing the world and life and the environment that you create for them based on how you're caring for them and what you're offering them and how you're talking to them. And so what I love doing is just really reminding people, like, I don't think this is anything we don't know intuitively, but I think clicking on that switch and, with a doula to say, hey, when you see that mom and partner for an appointment prenatally, greet the mom, greet the partner, and then look at mom's belly and say, hey, I know you're in there. So it's these little teeny tiny steps that doesn't have to be this overt, like, your baby's conscious, right? But it's really just these subtle little ways of saying, hey, you're in there. And then during birth, really including that person who's coming out and going through something huge, including them in your awareness and in your communication.
Yeah. I love it. It's so perfect. And I think one thing I always love to remind clients is there's this amazing time of getting to know each other. And when the baby's born, it's like, the baby's like, this is who I am, and this is what I need. And the parents are like, this is who we are, and this is what we need. And there's this beautiful relationship that starts to blossom. But really acknowledging that from the start. And
yeah, even in the womb, really acknowledging that there's a person, and, when you feel the movement and when you know that they are sensing, we have a very clear map now of when the senses kick on at different phases of prenatal development. And yeah, I love what you're saying, which is, I always think in metaphor, and it's like, imagine you are in another country, say Africa, where imagine you're here and you are traveling to Africa in 9 months. You're going to go live in Africa. You've never been there. You don't know anything about it. And there's a family that's going to greet you when you arrive. And how good would it feel if even before you get there, they called you once in a while and said, we're so glad you're coming. Even if you didn't understand the language they're speaking, you would understand the emotion. And if they sent you a little note, or you just, so imagine what it's like to be in the belly as a person, and you're coming out and you're living among these people, but you're not out yet. How wonderful would it feel if you've already felt like they're with you and they're connecting with you and they're acknowledging you even before you arrive. Yeah. And then imagine if they were really present with you as you're traveling on your journey to get to them. And then imagine getting there and seeing these people who you are already kind of know, but you don't know them completely yet. And they're just overjoyed, and they're taking good care of themselves so they can be present with you, and they're being patient with the fact that you don't know anything about where you are and you're extremely vulnerable, and they just slowly guide and support you to emerge out into the world that you're now in.
Yeah. It's beautiful. That's a perfect metaphor for that. Yeah, I mean, that's why at DTI, when we focus on the full spectrum of care, like, we're really sitting with people through this pregnancy, from beginning to end. And I mean, what are your like top 3 tips on how to connect with a baby in utero? I think that's the one thing that kind of still throws people nowadays, is like how to really connect with this belly. They think of it as their belly, not the baby. So like, what are the top 3 things?
No, I agree. And I think it needs to be authentic. It needs to feel organic. But, I think especially when the little one starts moving, there was all this great research done in my field back in the 80s where they would have moms, if they felt a kick in one place in the belly, they would poke it and the baby would often kick back. And then they maybe would tap over here and see if the baby moved. So, you're playing. That's play. That's just playing.
Yeah.
The other thing, might be if you have a family appreciation practice at dinner. And if you say, I'm appreciating me for this, I'm appreciating you for that, I'm appreciating this person for this. Oh, I'm appreciating little one in my belly for growing without me having to do anything. So those are 2. And then the other one that I love encouraging people to practice, and again, you might do it just in your thoughts, you might do it out loud with your words, but it's really just that acknowledgement, like, hey, I know you're in here. Hey, we're getting ready to go to the store, so you're going to feel my body moving. Just wanted to let you know what's happening. Yeah. So it's really just acknowledging, I know you're there, and here's what I'm going through. And then the last one that I think is probably the most important is if you're going through emotional stuff, which you will as a pregnant person, because that's really, inevitable, to really differentiate for that little one, hey, you might be feeling me having a stressful reaction right now. I want you to know we're safe. Mm-hmm. So one of my favorite examples, so back 12 years ago, I was in Santa Barbara and I was learning all this stuff. And I had created and was teaching a prenatal parenting class. And I had, I've been talking about babies are conscious and here's some ways that you can connect. And I shared that one about differentiating. And the following week, a mom comes to the class and she said, I kind of didn't buy it when you were talking about that. It felt a little weird and hokey. But I was my husband and I were leaving the house, and we pull out of the driveway, and the car in front of us almost hit our neighborhood cat that we all love a lot, like this little cat that we all really love. And she said she felt herself have a stress reaction and feel her body get, anxious. And she felt the baby start kicking a lot. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, pretty quickly, she went ahead and she said, oh, you might be sensing my stress. Hey, I just want to let you know what happened. The cat almost got hit. I got scared. I had a big reaction. You might be feeling that, and I just want you to know we're safe. Mm-hmm. And she said the little one in the womb just calmed right down.
I love it.
It's so powerful and so simple, right?
It's incredible. It's just like stories like that, I think, is really what needs to just spread all the time. Like, wow.
Do you have any from your own experiences with either of your little friends?
I do. Like just with Una, that's the one that's most fresh in my mind. Right. I remember the first time I talked to her out loud and I was in the bath and I was like, hi. Like it just feels a little awkward just to be talking out loud like that. But we were just in the bath and it had been a really stressful month. It was around the holidays, and you do a great workshop about that too, about how the holidays is crazy birds. But I was taking a bath to try and just mellow out, and I was talking to her, and she would always kick so much in the bath, and she kind of just calmed as soon as I started talking to her and just saying, like, we're cool. We're just having a lot of family events right now. And it's magical, but it just feels so awkward when you like start the process.
I know. Yeah.
As soon as you start it's like it just makes so much sense. And I went to Mexico when I was pregnant with her, and I was really fearful of like we were kind of diving in the cenotes there, and I was getting really scared. And then I was like, wait, I'm supposed to be showing her it's okay to have an adventure and be a little scared, and we can do this. And I was like, this is her first like major adventure. And then when I thought about it with like her with me doing it, it just turned into a beautiful experience, and just me like meeting my fear and just, exploring this beautiful environment with her. So we had a few moments. We had a few moments.
I
But
love that. And I mean, that's the thing. It's not necessarily something that we've been raised with. Probably, unless you had a super conscious parent, most people having children now, their parents didn't know this stuff. There was nobody saying, hey, there's a person in there. They're conscious. They may not hear everything you're saying, but they're experiencing the energy of what you're communicating.
Oh, yeah.
And the truth is, even if you don't buy that they're getting it, when you talk to them and you explain what's going on or explain that you're stressed, by stating that for you, it changes the hormonal soup that's getting communicated to them.
Yeah.
So if that's all that you believe is happening, it's still worthwhile and valid.
Yeah, and it's great preparation for after the birth, where instead of holding a newborn, like, what's wrong? What do you need? It's like, you can just say instead, right now you're having a hard time, and it's going to pass, and we're going to do this together. We're going to figure out what you need together. And it's just, I think just opening up that line of communication before the birth is key to really fostering the relationship.
Yeah, that's what I like to encourage people to realize, is that this is a continuum of a lifelong relationship. You know, you're going to hopefully be with these people for a long time.
Yeah.
And the way that you acknowledge them in the womb, and even if you're not hearing them back, it's still worthwhile to communicate. However, there's some amazing stories that I've heard throughout my education and my time of doing this work, where if you do get slow and low and you do quiet yourself and you do allow for space and presence, you might start hearing some information back. And it's intuition, and you may not buy it or believe it at first, but you know, I've heard plenty of stories in my experience of people, you know, knowing that they were about to go have a C-section, and the doctor said, you know, this is it, we're doing this, and the mom, you know, said, all right, give me a minute or give me a night. And they got very still, and they went inward, and they said to the little one, hey, if you want to come that way, great. If that's what's going on here, I totally understand. But if you do want to come vaginally, you need to get moving. And I mean, it gives me the chills, because there's been many cases that I know of personally of those little ones getting moving and them coming vaginally.
Yeah, just opening up that communication.
Right.
It reminds me of our mutual friend Linnell, who was like, she with her little baby not liking the car, but having to drive her oldest to school. She said she just had a conversation with her 2-month-old and was like, this is what has to happen every day, and we have to do this. And it would be a little easier if he didn't cry in the car, and just had this open communication, and he didn't do it anywhere after that. And I'm like, yes, that's like, we just have to remember to talk to these little people, and because that's what they are. They have all this personality, and they're just these little beings on the planet, just like we are.
Little humans, you know, not even little, big beings that created these masterful, complex bodies. Out of basically magic. I mean, yes, we have a hand in it. I mean, there's biology involved.
Sure.
But if you really stop and think about the whole thing, and you can broaden the scope and really see the big picture, they're not little babies. They're people that have been to come in these small packages, but the wisdom and the isness and the power, and if you acknowledge that from the beginning, but also support them to hold their neck up and do the things, you know, give them food, there's a lot that they can't do. But I think we're going to see an era in the next, you know, 25, 30 years where what we know is a sliver of what we're going to understand about the spirituality of humans and what happens early in life in terms of what babies are capable of. And it's like, it's going to explode, and our minds are going to be blown, and our little people are going to go, I can't believe you guys didn't know this. I can't believe you didn't know that we were talking back to you. You just had to get quiet and still enough to listen, because we go really slow.
Yeah, absolutely. I learned that. So that was a big lesson for me with my oldest daughter, where she was always like frustrated in that little body of hers. Like, she just wanted out of that little body. And it taught me so many lessons, just listening to her and being like, this is frustrating for her. And the first year of development is huge for babies. Like, they do so much in so little time. And like, there's just so much growth in their body, their spirit, their everything, and their brain. And that's another favorite thing I have that you talk about is how to parent the brain. And I love the way you lay it out because it's so perfect and simple, and it just takes this whole scientific thing and it's so big, and you make it easier to understand the way you lay it out. And it doesn't only give us tools to how we communicate to these babies, it just gives us tools to how to communicate as humans in general. And there are times when I'm parenting where I'm like, I like know exactly what brain I'm in, and I'm like, okay, this is what Carrie's talking about. Like, what do I need now to like calm this brain and get past this moment? And I just love like just talking to our doulas out there, like giving them these tools to help facilitate this with families, I think is really important. And I'd love for you to kind of break down each behavior of the brain and just really like what the person needs when they're in that state.
Brilliant. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. I mean, I just find it so profoundly helpful to understand this stuff. So I would love to share it with you. So like you said, there's insane amounts of development that takes place in that first year after birth. So, you know, this 7, 8, whatever size, 5 to 10 pound person arrives out of the womb, and within 1 year, just 1 year, they've at least, you know, tripled their size, most of them. You know, you could have a 20 pound easily. I know some 7 months old that are 20 pounds. There's, you know, I mean, physical development that is so profound. They're, you know, going from not being able to sit up to, or even do anything for themselves, to starting to walk and starting to talk and signing and, you know, doing art with paint and all sorts of stuff that if we actually step back and look at it, it would probably make our heads explode because it's so extraordinary and profound what happens in that first year. So the only reason that can take place is because of our brains and the way that they're developing. So when the little one comes out of the womb, they've got all the brain structures they could ever need. They've got all these neurons, which are these long nerve cells that are going to ultimately connect to allow for expression and movement and language and all sorts of cool stuff. But they're not pre-wired. They don't come out with the ability to talk. They don't come out with the ability to even connect, you know, socially. What they come out with is about 20% of their brain wired, and it's all back here in their brain stem. And so Dan Siegel uses his hand as a brain model, and I'll point, but I think it's helpful too. So this is the brain stem, and it's the part of the brain we call the reptile brain. And it's only concerned with our survival. It's a fight or flight system. It is taking, as the little one takes in information through the senses, they're assessing, the nervous system is assessing, am I safe or am I not safe? Can I handle what's coming at me, or am I overdone? Do I need to sound the alarm and let the people around me know that I'm not okay? And so the first 6 weeks after birth, that's all they've got. And so they hear a new noise, the alarm might go off. Temperature changes, the alarm might go off. And it's not on a dial, it's just on or off. So it could be that the little person, you know, heard something that just wasn't familiar and they're off. Or there's something growing in their body and they're freaking out. And all of that is because of this brain stem, this reptile brain. At about 6 weeks, we move up in the brain. So this is always on and always running the show for the rest of our lives. But at about 6 weeks postpartum, this limbic brain, what we call the mammal brain, which is in the middle, that starts to develop and kick on. And that's when we start to develop our attachment to our caregivers. And that interaction and the social smiling, you know, it's like, you know, the little one finally starts to wake up and like you're making eye contact and you're saying, oh, I see you. And they go, ooh, and you go, oh, I see, ah, and they're like, ah, and then you're just having this conversation. And it's not, oh, how was your day? Oh, it was fine. It's very nonverbal. It's very mammalian. And for that first year after birth, yes, they're working on their body and their muscles, and they're working on language on a very deep level. But what they're mostly working on is that connection and that emotional communication with caregivers, with the people that are with them the most, and communicating with them in loving, beautiful ways. And then at about 9, 10, 11, 12 months, this human brain, what we call the neocortex, starts to wire. And that's wonderful. And that's the part of us that, makes us human. It's the unique part of us on this planet is this. That's what allows us to speak language, to think rationally, to read a book, to do art, to have compassion for people all over the world. It's the highest level we have. But what's really important to understand is it takes a long time for it to wire. And in the midst of the wiring, we're very susceptible to slipping to the other parts of the brain, that we don't actually stay there all the time. None of us do. Not the little people, not the medium people, and not the big people. So this information isn't just child development, it's human development. Just like you said, it's really useful information for people of any age. And so what you want to understand is when somebody is in their human brain state, that's when you talk and you appreciate and you teach them things and you communicate with your words and you really guide them verbally. When somebody's in more of this mammalian brain, that's when they're whiny and crispy and overdone but not totally freaking out. And what I recommend during that is empathize and zip it. I hear you. Zip it. Don't talk more. Just let it be. Let there be a pause. What you're doing is you're connecting with this part of the brain that's trying to communicate, I'm not totally feeling quite right. And by empathizing and just meeting them without too many words, you're going to be able to slow their system down, and ultimately they'll come back online in their human brain. When somebody's in this reptilian brain, that's when you want to get low and slow. And when people are in that brain state, it means they're in a state of fear. They're very stressed. Most of us don't go there when we're not stressed. And so when a little one is stressed, you want to communicate, we're safe. That's all that brain wants to know. Are we safe or not safe? And so with a tiny newborn, when you're holding them and they're upset, and typically our culture would say, oh, no, you're okay, it's fine, you're okay. And we jiggle them and we bounce them. That's not even though your words are saying you're okay, there's nothing in your communication non-verbally that's communicating that. And that is what speaks the loudest to the little humans. So we need to really understand that, yes, talk, teach, play, have fun in here, but as soon as you sense somebody slipping, trim the words, try to keep it to a minimum, just empathize, eye to eye, skin to skin, heart to heart. Those are the ways to connect with that mammal brain. And then when that reptile brain is on fire and saying, alert, alert, not safe, that's when you want to get low and slow in yourself and just try to non-verbally communicate, I'm here, you're safe, I'm with you. I hear you. And, if you start practicing these things with any age person, I think it does become easier to practice them with the little ones. Because I think a lot of us have some wiring that if a baby's upset, I need to be in action fixing it. And that's not really what's needed. They actually need the opposite. They need a calm, mirroring, non-anxious presence.
Yeah. It's huge. And I always have that. That's another one of my favorites, the zip it, because it's like this need to just want to help and make it better. And sometimes it's like less is best. And you really just need to kind of let them feel. I think that's another important part that we're just learning now for the first time is just, I see your emotions and we're just going to walk through this, but I'm here when you're ready and when you need me. I know, and I hear you.
I hear you, Una. I think that's true, and I think, for your community, for the doulas watching, to really understand that that's the most valuable thing you can offer these families is modeling and treating them with that understanding of the brain. So if the mom is in labor and you sense that she's in a really scared, fearful place, it's not time to be talking and giving her more information. You got to zip it and go hold her feet or check in and say, well, I'm going to hold your hand right now. Does that feel okay? Like, you just want to communicate yes, this is intense, I'm with you, and you're safe. And then you want to stop talking and just model that. And I want people to really get that if you give, even if, you know, for a parent who's never parented before, if you just give them teeny little doses of this stuff, not through teaching it, but by being it, that if in the appointments, if they come in and they're all frazzled and, you know, your inclination is, oh, good, we're going to talk through this. If you can slow yourself down and just reflect back, hey, I sense you're having a hard time. Tell me more. You doing that with them now is going to set them up for doing it with their little people.
Yeah. And it's just another helpful reminder for everyone to just slow down. You know, like the height of my practice was in New York City, and it's go, 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 go. And I think that's why postpartum has always been my favorite, because then I walk into a house where sometimes the energy levels up here, and I would just sit on the couch and just witness and be a calming presence. And then everyone just kind of turns around and is like, oh, we can do this all together. And it's just, I think as a doula, it was one of my favorite things to do in the postpartum moments. And hi, I see you.
Yeah, I've had some great experiences. So when I first got back to Austin, I was doing these mom and baby circles, sort of like what our friend Linnell does. And, you know, there'd be sometimes 10, 12 mom and baby pairs. And they would all come in, and they would be on my round rug, and they'd be laying there, the little ones. And we would go around the circle, and they might be checking in or telling us what's going on in their lives. And as soon as moms were getting a little stirred up, which is reasonable, they're going through a lot, the babies would start to get itchy. You know, they'd get a little anxious, and there'd be a little upset. And when, on my good days, I didn't always do it, but on my best days, I would look around and I would just say, all right, let's all take a pause. And I would just sit there and breathe. And within 20 seconds, not even, the whole room would calm. Everybody would just chill out. And it was amazing, but it looks like magic, but it's not. It's just simply when the nervous systems get going, it's the adult's responsibility to slow it all down and calm yourself first, because that's going to be the most efficient route to calming the little one.
You have an amazing book called Calms, and this is it really speaks to me, and I think it's going to speak to a lot of our doulas, because it's really similar to a method we have called Slow Doula Method, which is like a step-by-step way of just calming yourself and centering to be really present with a family, and how to discern a room, and then see what's like the best support you can offer them. So Calms really speaks to me, because it just relates that in such a beautiful way. But I'd love for you to tell us more about that step-by-step process, how you break it down.
Yeah, I would love it. So my friend Debbie Takikawa, who created a film called What Babies Want back in a long time ago, early 2000s, she and I were having a conversation one day, and you know, I said, I really like Harvey Karp's work, Happiest Baby on the Block. But based on what I've learned through my PhD program and just being around babies and humans, there's a couple pieces missing for me. And so I said, you know, the two things that he's not acknowledging, one is that when he is holding those little ones and shushing and doing all the things that get him calm, he's calm because he's confident in this process, and he's breasted, and he's been around babies for decades. And the second piece was, especially in the video, I don't know how he is in person, but in the video, there was no acknowledgement of the baby as a person. I never really sensed that there was oh, I see you. It was like, oh, you're fine, little baby, but it wasn't like, oh, person, I'm with you. And so we decided that before people get to the 5 S's, his 5 S's, the soothing, there needs to be a couple steps before that. So we created Calms, and basically it's a way of doing, but it's really a way of being. It's not really about the doings. It's just a protocol for people to, first and foremost, check in with themselves. So really just becoming present with whatever's going on, whether your own alarm is going off in your reptilian brain, or your stomach is getting tight, or your shoulders are hunching, or you're feeling like you're about to scream because you're so scared and frustrated. It's just taking that second to check in. 2 is allow a breath. And that's anything that gets you a little more back to you. It's anything that can slow you down in that moment of feeling dysregulated, of feeling wobbly, of feeling unmoored by this experience of being with this little person who's upset. So those 2 steps are about you. It has nothing to do with the little one. It's all about you first. It's literally like putting the oxygen mask on yourself before you help the child. The 3rd step is L rather, which is listen. So again, what I see that isn't talked about in his work is this idea that there's an actual person there who's doing whatever they can to tell you what they need to tell you, even if they're not using our language. And so by listening and then mirroring, they go kind of hand in hand, that's the M, mirroring by saying, oh, I hear you telling me that you're upset, or, oh, I see you moving your arms around. Oh, I see that you're having a hard time and that you're hungry. You're listening for what you hear the communication to be, and then you're mirroring it back. And then S in the calms is soothe. So you don't just leave the baby hanging like, okay, I hear what you're saying and I'm calm. You do have to do stuff. But if you do those steps first, 1, you've calmed yourself down, so the communication to the little one, the nonverbal communication, which is the loudest communication, is more regulated. And then you've acknowledged that there's a person there having an experience, which is what any of us would want if we're distressed. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't want the EMT who comes when we're distressed and just starts moving our body around and doing things without acknowledging, hey, I know you're in a trouble, I'm going to help you. And then the S is, bouncing on the ball or going outside. And the truth is, it's going to be a much more efficient and effective way to calm this human, because you're calm, they feel cared for and seen and heard, and you've got a little more awareness of the tools that you're actually trying.
Mm-hmm. It's so key. It's just, I feel like having, again, it's not like, okay, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, like going down the list, but having that idea that you have a tool in your mind to really help facilitate the situation, I find to be so helpful. And just saying things out loud, it's really amazing as a parent of all ages. Even in my relationship now, I feel like with my partner, like just calling out like, hey, this is really hard. I am really stressed out right now, or like, I'm so frustrated. It kind of just opens up the whole road for more communication and more calmness, and just a time to help and just a time to do something. And I think that's what every parent wants, is like, I need to do something. I need to fix this and I need to make it better. And sometimes we can't, but what we can do is call it out, say what we're feeling, and just offer that love and compassion. And, it's just, I think it's really nice. And I love how it reminds me so much of our SDM. It's just because doulas are always in those situations where they're witnessing, unfortunate situations during birth or the postpartum time, like how they hear pediatricians talk to new families, or grandmas talk to new families, and just what do they do with that information, and how do they facilitate the room, and just how do they offer support, and really just slowing down and seeing what you're feeling, what's triggering you, and then then you're really able to figure out what you need to offer somebody and what they need.
I agree, and it gives you perspective, especially if you're in a birthing situation that is not going the way you would hope it would go for this family. I think slowing it down and getting present with yourself, even though it might still feel yucky and you might, feel upset that this is what's happening, I think it allows you to rise above it and really kind of have a better sense of, okay, this is the journey that's happening right now. I'm here. I'm going to add some positive energy or whatever. I mean, is that kind of, I think that's what you're saying. It's like whatever's going down, resisting it or being upset about it isn't going to help that family, but me getting present and being a force in this situation of being somebody that can kind of hold the ground, that's going to benefit the birthing family and the newborn and the 3-year-old and the 15-year-old and the 25-year-old and the 45-year-old and the 90-year-old. Like, it's never not useful to know this skill.
It just helps in all elements of life. And I just, I think as doulas, like years ago, we were taught just be a fly on the wall, just be a witness, like be there for support. And then we were realizing that like we play a much bigger role here. And we need to, like, we are a passenger in this whole journey. And yes, it's watching the story unfold, but like we needed to give our doulas a tool to like, how do you play a role in this situation? And I've heard now from our doulas that like the SDM really just helps in all avenues of life, and it's exactly like calms and just really getting to that center in your body and just rolling through life in a slower, more peaceful way.
Yeah,
why
more
not?
Connected. Yes,
I know, just more inward. I think that's what we don't do enough nowadays. Everything is out and we're going, and everything's on the computer screen or on the phone, and social media makes you feel like you're always putting yourself out there. But what happens when we need to tuck inward and be with ourselves? And it just makes us for better birth workers, better, friends, partners, parents, all of it. So
yeah, and it is, you're training them, and then with comms, the real the nugget of it is you're training yourself to become a non-anxious mirroring presence.
Yeah.
Which is something that calms the other nervous systems. The nervous systems are communicating. We have social nervous systems. They're constantly in communication with each other. And to be a person in the birth scene or a parent or a doula in a home where people are struggling with this newborn phase, to be the non-anxious mirroring presence for that system, it's beyond value. Like, I think we're going to realize that the role of the doula is so profound, especially in the direction you're taking it, which is the personhood of the doula. That my role is less about the doing, and it's more about me setting the tone of a regulated system in the midst of whatever is going on the surface of the experience. And so, to me, it's like, it's the nugget, it's the nub, it's if you lead with in your training, if you lead with teaching people that, then any skill that's built upon that is just going to be gravy. Because if they did nothing else, I mean, there's research, it, like, when they were really exploring the value of doulas, there was benefit of women, they would do trials, no doula, very active doula, and somebody just, a woman, a female presence in the room doing nothing but being calm, or, ideally. And what that they still had amazing results that were different than the non-doula experience. So having somebody just there breathing and being calm and acknowledging where they're at, it's invaluable. There's no other way of saying it.
No, there really isn't. And, again, it's just, I find it to be so beautiful to slow down. And I think that's really why I love my job so much. And especially training new doulas now, just to be and slow down a little bit is just, why not, And I remember with the first few births I did, I was exhausted because I did so much and I had to be moving and massaging and getting her ice chips. And no, what happens to just being and witnessing and just, yes, I'm here if you need anything. That to me is much more supportive than the actual running around and doing things.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if there's a way, and again, people learn through experience and modeling far more than they learn through words. So for the doulas, when they do the postpartum work, really be conscious of the energy that you're entering that scenario with, because it's likely that they're up here because they're tired and there's lots going on and they've got a baby who's going into the 6th week and they're growing and they're up more at night. And if you walk in and you can just set the tone, I mean, you want to meet them. You don't want to be like, whatever, I'm relaxed. You can say, wow, seems like you guys have had a really big night. Whew, let's take a breath. Oh my.
Yeah.
Come sit down. I want to fix you a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Let's slow it down. You know, this little person, they do best when we are just slow, because their system is just getting used to so many things that if we're up here all the time, they're going to get anxious and upset. So I'm here. I want you guys to sit down and connect. And you just breathe and you just model it. You don't have to talk too much. You just have to really bring that to them.
Yeah. I think it's, and it's all wrapped up to me always in the back of my mind is self-care. Yes. And just as birth workers and people supporting, you know, families through these stages of life, like we have our own life where, you know, I'm a mom of two where I'm running around and I'm like, who's doing what? Lunch here, you go here. Okay, great. Into the car, drive. Oh, there's traffic. And like everything is just up here. And I have like this ritual where I have to like be in my car and I have to just put my favorite song on and get whatever I'm feeling out, put some awesome lipstick on. It's like just makes me feel good. And I have to do that before I walk into someone's house with a baby because I need to be like full, like just present with myself. And that's my self-care that I do. And like we're always talking to our doulas about this. Like this is why we have our, you know, one doula retreat where we all go to Mexico and just take care of ourselves, because I think as doulas we don't, like we're just giving, and we don't have that reminder to slow down and take care of yourself. And you talk a lot about this with new families and just the importance of self-care, and how it actually makes us better parents. If we don't take care of ourselves, it's a disservice to us. So what
and
are your
littles? Yeah, to everybody. Yes.
Yeah. So it just throws the whole ship off if everyone's not taking care of themselves. So what are your tips with that?
Yeah. So just very brief background. So the parent, and typically the mom, especially when the little one is brand new, we're the regulator. The little humans don't have the ability, that's not a pre-wired thing, to regulate the nervous system. So there's a lot of emotional ups and downs without a lot of ability to manage it. And so what parents need to understand is that self-care is not a luxury. It's not a nice thing to do for yourself. It's not a selfish thing to do for yourself. Mm-hmm. It's actually a necessity for the health of the family system. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, the main reason for that is because you have a limited amount of energy, just like your cell phone. It's not unending. You know, I'm looking at my computer. It's like, oh, I need to charge it. It's not unending. It's being used and it's draining, and I have to do something to recharge it. So with my computer or my phone, I have to plug it in. With myself, personally, I need to be in nature. I need to be quiet. I need to breathe. I need to get in water. Like I have things that charge me and give me energy. And the thing about, and that's wonderful, and a lot of people are really great at that before they have children because they've got time and they sleep and it's kind of effortless. But what happens when you have a little person or multiple little people is, one, you just have less time and energy to fill yourself, and two, you are charging them with your energy and your words and your care and your milk and your body and your hugs. And all of that is energy out to help them stay regulated, to help them stay balanced. And so if you get completely spun out because you're not filling up, and they plug in because they're upset and they're having a hard time, or they fall, or the little one is teething and can't handle that, if they plug in and sense, and it's a finely tuned system that they are born with to tune into the nervous system of the parent, if they sense that there's no energy there, if there's no charge, if there's no juice, they're going to get more dysregulated, and they're going to cry louder, and they're going to get whinier, and they're going to be even more difficult to calm. Mm-hmm. And so that's another reason why calms starts with the parent, starts with the caregiver, is because you've got to get a little energy in your system in that moment to be able to give out. But ideally, people are consciously charging throughout the day so that they're not getting drained as quickly. Just like your phone. If you know you're not going anywhere and you plug it in, even if you don't really need it, you're going to feel a little better than if it's draining and then all of a sudden you have to go run an errand and it's almost empty. It's like, well, that's not going to work. So what I really encourage people to do is think teeny tiny, because I know not everybody has the time to do a walk or a yoga class or whatever it is that really fills you. So I encourage people to do micro. And I love, like, oh my God, picking your favorite song when you get in the car, brilliant. Even a little lipstick, brilliant. You know, maybe there's jewelry that you wear that you look at and touch that kind of calms you down.
Yeah.
It could be jumping up and down 5 times. It could be having a pitcher of water that you leave on the counter, and every time you think of it, you know, and don't even think of it, just go over, pour it, and just drink your water nice and slowly. You know, it's teeny tiny little mind, you know, I call them micro fill-ups, the little things that you can do throughout the day that just don't leave you so depleted that once somebody needs something, you're losing it because you didn't take care of yourself. You don't have that luxury. It's not an option if you're parenting from a conscious place.
Yeah, it's huge. I just took a mother's group, Linnell's mom's group with Una, and one mom brought up, we do this like filling out, you know, what would you do in each little time frame, like 30 seconds, a minute, 24 hours. And one mom said to drink with her eyes closed. And I was like, yes. I'm like, mine is drinking water, but I didn't think to close my eyes. And it's so simple. And it's those teeny tiny little things that really can just change your day. And I love the visual that you have of like the parent, mainly the mom sometimes, is the regulator, and all of those other little, you know, batteries that are running around you. And it's just this visual I have is kind of like those rides and fairs where it's like the main hub in the middle, and then there's those little chairs that go around. And if this main hub is not charged, those little chairs are not going to keep going around and around. And it's just everyone, it's like one big unit, but everyone also is their own person. And it's a great visual. I love how you talk about that regulator.
Yeah. And you remember, you know, and you're not just regulating them, you regulate you.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. So you first. I mean, I can't say it enough times. And I know it's not how, you know, I don't know. I grew up in a home where my mom was very committed to making sure everybody's needs were met, but not very focused on herself. And I had to learn it as an adult, and also undo a lot of beliefs about what it is to be, you know, an adult who takes care of herself. And, you know, is it selfish? Is it okay? Is it being a bad person? And it's like, oh my gosh, the more I take care of me, the more I have for everybody around me, unquestionably. And the more fun I'm having. And the truth is, most people, when they're around me, they want to be having fun, just like I want to be having fun when I'm around a lot of the people I'm around. Yeah. So really recognizing that whether you're a doula, you know, taking care of yourself is even more important because you're giving so much, or a parent, a new parent especially, you know, really giving yourself time and space to explore what's essential to my well-being. What are the things that are non-negotiables for me to stay regulated and balanced in this life? So, you know, just asking yourself that question. So, you know, for me, it's nature. So I live somewhere where I'm in nature all the time. And, you know, but I also need to step outside for a few seconds every few hours or every hour. I need to go for a walk most days. I need to have time at the ocean at least once a year. Like it's minute to minute, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, that I have to be paying attention to how am I running this system at optimal levels.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love stripping the idea away that it's selfish. Like that's one thing I hear all the time with clients and our doulas and myself and my family. And it's just like, why do we go there? Like the selfishness and the mom guilt. I feel like it's just it's right there in your mind. And I think it's about reminding each other, and just as a doula, reminding your clients and just be like, that's not selfish. Like you need to just enjoy it. Just even if it's 1 minute of the day, it's not.
Yeah, I did a workshop once, and this mom who was struggling with the whole self-care thing, she had the epiphany. She said, "Oh, it's not selfish, it's self-full."
Ooh.
And right? And so it was like this little shift that allowed her to incorporate all of this information into one word of, okay, me being self-full means I have for others in the way that I would like to have for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm on a mission to get everybody being self-full.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
That's such a good term. It's amazing. Oh, this is amazing. That's perfect. And Carrie, I just love all of this. So
I do too, Gina.
yeah.
I want to just say thank you for what you do and for who you are and for having those gorgeous people. Una, you're amazing.
She's passed out. She just, yeah.
She hung with us. And, you know, thank you for the work you're doing in the world and
Same
for
to you.
the way that you're approaching caring for families and training these amazing people. And I'm just honored that we got to do this. So thank you.
Me too, Carrie. Thank you to you and all that you do. It's incredible. And I love your focus on mixing the scientific background and just making it so relatable for us people who just need to function throughout every day. And you're just a pleasure to talk to. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks,
Gina. Bye.
Bye.